Birgit or Birgit.
Hello, yeah, my name is Birgit. I live in Seattle, Washington, US. I've joined Toastmasters about 3 months ago during the pandemic. I was looking for kind of a new hobby, connect to people. I'm in Abhijit Club in California, actually, and he's also the one who invited me tonight.
Welcome, Birgit. So now we have Carol. Carol, are you there?
Me? Which Carol? No.
Carol, let me see. The Carol, now Carol. Oh, Carol. You, yeah, it's you. Carol Lee.
Hi, I'm Carol Lee, and this is my second Toastmaster session. So I'm new, and Tong invited me here last week, and then she also introduced this what you call that, craft?
Speechcraft.
Speechcraft also to me. So thank you. Nice meeting everyone.
Good. Thanks, Carol. Thanks for joining again. So we have Kara Aston.
Thanks, Madam Toastmaster. My name's Carol Ashton. I am from Wetaskiwin, Alberta, Canada. Nice of you guys to all come tonight. And back to you.
Welcome, Carol. Thank you. And then next we have, let me see, Cedric. Cedric?
Hi, I am Abhijit's brother, so he's the one who told me about it.
All right, welcome, Cedric. Then we have Shavette.
Yes, you said it right. Good evening, everyone. I am Shavette Black. I'm from the Bahamas. I've been a Toastmaster for 13 years, and I was invited by Toastmaster Derek Rose.
Welcome, Shavette. Then we have Cristiano.
You can call me Chris. That's Zoom. Yeah, I'm Chris. I am from California, originally from Italy. And I am here because I know Abhijit. He is in my club. I don't know exactly how many he's in Toastmaster Club, but he's in our club. So that's why I know him.
Welcome, Chris. So next one is Crystal. Crystal, are you there? Crystal Campbell. All right, you can.
Sorry about that. A pleasant good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Anybody guess? My name is Crystal Campbell. I am from the Bahamas. I'm a part of the BFM Diplomats Club. I've been a Toastmaster for about 11 months.
Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you.
Now we have our presenter, Dennis. Dennis? Is Dennis here?
Oh.
Yes, Dennis Dawson, yes.
You want me to introduce myself?
Or you can wait for me to introduce you. Up to you.
Yeah, for goodness sakes, no, I am far too modest to talk about all the wonderful things that I am, so I'll let someone else do that.
All right, welcome, Dennis. So next one we have Dharani. Dharani or Dharani?
Yeah, I'm Dharani. I'm from India. Abhijit told me about this session and I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Welcome, Dharani. And then Didi Gu.
Hi, everybody. I am E from California. I have been Toastmaster since 1994. When I was 3 years old, I started.
You're funny.
Okay, welcome, Didi.
Thank you.
Next one we have Elma. Elma.
Hi everyone, my name is Elma Knowles. I'm from the Bahamas and I've been a Toast.
You're on mute, yeah.
And I'm enjoying the journey. I just noticed my mic was muted. I'm Elma Knowles from the Bahamas, a Toastmaster for the past 6 years. And I heard about this group on Facebook and Derek. Good to be here.
Welcome, Elma.
Thank you, John.
Next one, we have Devine or Devin. Devin.
Hey everyone, my name is Devin. I'm from San Jose, California, part of San Jose Toastmasters Club. I've been in Toastmasters for about 2 years now. I heard about this meeting from the man of the hour, Mr. Abhijit, as well as Dennis Dawson, Mr. Wonderful. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him later.
All right, welcome, Devin. Wow, list keeps refreshing because we have more people joining. So let me see, the next one will be Ishwaki. Oh, Ishwaki.
Hey everyone, this is Ishwaki from Intel Toastmasters Club, and I'm also been invited by Abhijit.
Welcome, Ishwaki. Now we have Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen, also joining you from California. I was also invited by the very well-connected Abhi, and I've been in Toastmasters for 6 years. Thank you.
Welcome, Karen. Now we have Pradeep. Pradeep.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'm Pradeep from Cisco Speaks Toastmaster. I've been with Toastmasters for like 4 years now. Abhijit is coaching our club. That's how I came to know about this, and he's trying to push me to get out of my comfort zone and visit other clubs. That's why I'm here.
Welcome, Pradeep.
Thank you.
Gail. Gail Roberts.
Yes, good evening again to everyone. My name is Gail Roberts. I hail from the sunny island of the Bahamas. I've been a Toastmaster since October 2016. I am happy to be here. I was invited by my club president, Toastmaster Elma Knowles. Thank you.
Welcome, Gail. Next, we have a guest, named guest. Can you please first rename you, and then we can get back to you. And we have another guest named Jim. Jim, yeah, Jim.
Hi everyone, I'm Jim, currently still stuck in Australia due to the COVID, so glad to be here.
Welcome, Jim, welcome back. And then we have next one, Ida. Is that the right pronunciation? What, Ida? Ida or Ida? IDA. All right, so we'll go back to you. And then we have Kendra. Kendra, is Kendra here?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I am Kendra Monroe. I am from the Bahamas, and I heard about this. This is my second time around. I've heard about this meeting through my home club, Cable Revolutionaries. I have been a Toastmaster for the past 8 years. Pleasure to be here.
Welcome. Now we have Lorraine. Lorraine Myers. We can go back to you later. Margaret.
Yeah.
Oh, Lorraine, are you here?
Tom, after this, can we introduce Dennis Dawson, because we can start our evaluation workshop.
Okay, so yeah, we still have people joining. And do we want to do the rest after the speech, after the
Yes.
presentation? Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, I know it's quite challenging. This is probably the biggest speech craft that we have, right? So glad to have. All right, so it's now 8 o'clock. Time for our presentation. So evaluation. Now we have Dennis Dawson to give a presentation on how to conduct effective evaluation tonight. As you know, evaluation is a unique component of the Toastmasters program. It's also my favorite part of the Toastmasters program. When I joined the Toastmasters about 2 years ago, I had no confidence in giving speeches, but every time I got positive feedback, it helped me to build confidence. So I have the courage to go back again and again to give more speeches. Also, the constructive criticism with the evaluation helped me to know where and how to improve for my future speeches. And at the same time, I guess everybody wants to learn how to evaluate other speakers' speech to help them the same way that the speech helped us. But I feel that it's quite challenging, at least it's to me. So we're very glad to have Dennis Dawson to give us a presentation on how to conduct effective evaluations. Let me find Dennis' bio here. So Dennis Dawson is a two-time distinguished Toastmaster and avid storyteller. He's the 2019 Humorous Speech and the 2020 Tall Tales champions. His ego is too large to fit into a Zoom screen, so he has had to leave it behind for this evening's presentation. Let's welcome Dennis Dawson, Effective Evaluation. Dennis.
Thank you, thank you. You know, I have these wonderful, wonderful slides, and I would love to share them. Mr. Host. And now I can.
We can see it.
Yay! So I've entitled this presentation Winning Evaluations, because when you give an evaluation, of course, you're always a winner. But tonight in particular, we're going to talk about how you can effectively give an evaluation at the club level to your friends to be sure that they continue to grow. But I want to talk about how you take it up a notch when you're actually in a contest situation, and talk about the magic that you have to add above the fine feedback that you give the person, that little extra something that lets you be victorious in the evaluation contest. And just to show you that I'm not all talk, we're going to have some evaluators evaluate, and then I'm going to evaluate the evaluators who just evaluated, and we'll get some great evaluation going on tonight. I love evaluation because really it is the heart of Toastmasters. And we mean that in a couple of ways. First of all, it's the core of what we do. Everything in the education program has to do with preparing your speeches, delivering your speeches, and getting immediate feedback on those speeches. Without those components, Toastmasters really just doesn't even get started. But evaluations are also how we show we care. And it's through evaluation that we're able to help one another to be better than we can be on our own. Now, evaluations are beneficial to the speakers because, of course, they get immediate feedback on the speech that they've just given. Now, that's so much better than what we have on the job, right? Typically, you'll get an evaluation every 6 months, maybe once a year. And it's as if your boss has brought in a nice big bag of fertilizer and they're going to dump it on your head and tell you everything you've done wrong over the past 6 months. Maybe they'll plant a lovely little flower in the center when they're finished, but it's not nearly as effective or delightful as getting immediate feedback on an ongoing basis so that you can continually track your progress. Of course, people benefit from the suggestions that you offer, and it gives you a way to build up your members' self-esteem, to make them feel good about themselves, to make them feel confident, so they'll continue to come back, continue to work on their skills, and continue to grow. But it's not just beneficial to the speaker. The evaluator is going to benefit as well. You're forced to use your critical thinking skills in order to come up with the feedback you're going to give the person. You have to learn the skill of giving people feedback in such a way that they accept the feedback and then actually incorporate it into their behavior. It's not just enough to give a good evaluation. You have to give an effective one that actually has an impact on the person. That means that you've got to be empathetic. You've got to put yourself in the speaker's place and be willing to be vulnerable yourself as you're giving them the feedback that they need. So it's nice for the speaker, it's nice for the evaluator. Who else is going to benefit? Well, that would be everybody in the room, because anyone in the audience gets to hear a magnificent speech. Then they get to hear the evaluation. And after you hear the evaluation, you compare your impressions with the impressions of the evaluator and walk away with your own learning experience. Maybe that means that you take that evaluator's advice and then you're going to incorporate it in your own speeches. Or maybe it means that you disagree and it solidifies your opinion about what a better speech could be. Now, the important thing to always keep in mind is that Toastmasters is a self-education organization. There are no experts, there are no teachers or professors in Toastmasters. We're all people who come together to continually work on improving our public speaking and leadership skills. You can enter at any level. You will always have the opportunity to improve yourself by following the Toastmasters program. So there is no person in your club who is the expert who's going to tell everybody else how they should be doing evaluations or how they should be giving speeches. There are only other people just like you who are willing to step up and give their opinions, and we're all capable of doing that. So how do you do an effective evaluation? Well, before the speech, you want to discuss it with the speaker. You want to talk about the lesson objectives that come from the Toastmasters Pathways lesson. And keep in mind, there is no free speech in Toastmasters. Every speech at every club, every time, needs to be a Pathways lesson. Otherwise, you're missing out on the whole Toastmasters curriculum. Once you've looked at the guidelines, you ask if there are any areas of special interest to the speaker today. Do they want you to focus on their vocal variety or gestures? Do they want you to look at the content and think of some ways that they could punch up their speech? Whatever it is they're particularly interested in, you can keep notes on that and give them feedback in your evaluation. Now, while the person is up there speaking, first of all, be sure that it's obvious you're paying attention. Yes, you want to take notes, but you don't want to be nose down in the paper the whole time and not look up every now and again to actually listen to the speech and watch the speaker as they're speaking. So you at least pretend to be interested in what the speaker is doing up there. If you pretend long enough, it will become the truth. But don't just pay attention to the speaker now. I like to sit toward the back of the room when I'm evaluating a speech, or certainly have the gallery view up so that I can look at everybody in the room and see how they're responding to the speaker as they go. Very often, the way the audience is reacting is something that you can use as fodder for your speech. And as I said before, you really have to empathize with the speaker up there and put yourself in their place. Think about what you would do differently if you were giving the speech, or what they did particularly well. You can always give them feedback on the good ideas that you're going to steal from them and use yourself in the future. Now, when you actually deliver the evaluation, this is absolutely key. You want to personalize the evaluation, but you don't want to make it about yourself. you're going to use I language. I saw this, I heard this, while you were speaking, I felt this way. If you use I language, the nice thing is that the speaker can't argue with you and nobody else in the room can, because you're only saying what you think. They might not take your advice, but you can't be wrong about your own feelings. Never go wrong using I language. You can give personal stories or examples. Now, I noticed your knees were shaking a little bit. You looked nervous. You know what works for me? I like to calm my nerves by making fists with my toes. I put all my tension and energy down at the bottom of my feet where it can't be seen, and that way everything else can stay perfectly straight. When you talk about what works for me, once again, they can't argue with that. It works for you. It might not work for them, but just by giving your opinion, you're able to give them advice without telling them what they should do. Now, when you're evaluating a speech, you want to evaluate the speech that you heard today. You're not evaluating the speaker. Oh, Abhijit, you're always so good. I really appreciate it every time you speak. Today, okay, you forgot your notes. You actually forgot the entire speech. Your tie went up in flames, but you're always so good that we're going to forget all of that and just tell you you were great. No, that's not helpful. You're evaluating the speech that you saw today, not speeches that you've seen in the past, not what you expect to see in the future. Give real feedback, honest feedback on how the person performed today so that they can grow from that and always be better the next week. I prefer the sandwich method, where you start by giving a couple of things that were done well, a couple of areas for potential growth, and then you end up with the one thing that was very best about the speech. That's the way you're going to hook them in and be able to keep them coming back and listening for more. Now, during the evaluation, please give specific examples. Don't just say, "You were so funny. Everyone laughed at the humor in your speech because of the funniness thereof." No, I really liked the story you told about the time you fell in the swimming pool and the way you had to climb out. And yeah, I could feel the humiliation because I've experienced that myself in the past. I appreciated the way you defined the unfamiliar terms. When you talked about the difference between bits and bytes, I finally understood something that I'd never heard before. I wasn't always sure that your vocal variety matched the emotion when you were talking about how your dog got sick. It seemed like you were a little cheerful when you were talking about something that was actually rather a sad part of the story. By giving these kind of specific bits of feedback, they know that you were actually listening to the speech, and they have a specific area that they can go back and hone to make the speech even better. Be very careful though, as you're giving details. Don't just get up there and summarize the speech. I see this a lot. "Oh goodness, Dan, what a wonderful speech you gave today. First, you talked about your birth and how you came out of the womb and were washed off and wrapped and swaddled. Later, you talked about how you were in kindergarten, and in kindergarten, you ate cookies with the other class members. And then you were in second grade, blah, 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 blah." Well, you're just telling us exactly what everybody just heard. So don't summarize the speech. Give little details now and again. And as I say here, also don't rewrite the speech for somebody. I can't believe it when I hear someone give an evaluation. They say, "You told us all about your trip to the Grand Canyon. What might have been more effective is if you told us about your trip to Yosemite National Park. Now there's a park." I have no idea where people come up with evaluations like this. You certainly don't want to say, "You told us all about how close you were to your mother, but you didn't tell us how close you were to your father." I would have liked to have heard both, how close you were to your mother and how close you were to your father. Well, it could be that they weren't close to their father. That's why they didn't include it in the speech. So very careful about rewriting speeches. You can talk about what worked for you from the speech, what you could identify with. You can talk about things that you had difficulty connecting with, But don't go in there and tell them that they have to rewrite the speech in a way that would make it more true for you. Now, a good evaluation is going to give real suggestions for how people can improve. And this is absolutely critical to the success, not just of you in your evaluation today, but of your Toastmasters Club in general. So while an honest evaluation, as we say, it's upbeat, it's encouraging, it's great, you have to offer real suggestions for improvement. Now, I've been working with a couple of members whose first language isn't English while they were preparing their humorous speeches. Now, everyone has been giving such great, friendly, supportive feedback that they felt really confident that they'd get up and they'd give this speech and everybody's going to just love it. But what no one had told them is that their jokes were flat. They weren't funny, they weren't landing. And it wasn't until I actually stepped up to them and said, you know what? Your jokes could be a lot funnier if you change just a few little things about the wording. If you were to put the emphasis in these places on a few particular words. And I actually had them come to a special workshop with some of my other advanced speakers, and we were able to help them with not just making the joke land, but how to make the joke land in English, and so that it would sell to an American audience. As a result, I saw great improvement in just a few days. But if we hadn't intervened with them this way, they would have gone into that contest, they would have felt confident, they would have felt that they were ready to win that contest, they would have gotten up there and given their 7-minute humorous speech, and no one in the room would laugh because they hadn't been given real feedback on the quality of their speech. We have to remember that we're not coming here to learn how to talk to 5 people in the back room of a Denny's. Everyone comes to Toastmasters with the idea that they're going to be able to be a confident speaker up in front of a group of 100, 300, 1,000 people. We want to prepare people to give TED Talks. We want to prepare them to go to professional conferences and trade shows. If you're going to be that level of speaker, you have to practice being that level of speaker at the club level, where it's safe. This is where you learn the skills that you take forward. So give people real feedback as if they were going to go and give a TED Talk, not as if they're going to come back next week. So we're going to help people to improve, bring up their level of proficiency, to achieve their real goals and not just soothe their egos. Avoid the temptation to be a heart blesser. This is something that I take from my Texas roots. Every now and again, you got a heart blesser, and somebody will come in, well, bless your heart. It's so cute the way you try and talk English. It's so nice. God bless your heart. You're going to be a great speaker, aren't you? You're just going to be wonderful. Patronizing, being friendly, being nice, being kind, but not giving any helpful advice. So we always want to give useful, specific feedback. We don't want to fall back on the Toastmasters platitudes. Let's see if you recognize a couple of these. Now, here's a trope in Toastmasters. Use the stage. What does that mean? Well, this is something Toastmasters say to Toastmasters when they don't know what else to say to Toastmasters. No one ever said to Steve Jobs, hey, you know, I love that commencement speech you just gave, but you stayed behind the podium the whole time. I would have really enjoyed it more if you had walked back and forth on the stage. Now, people should move if it enhances the speech. But I typically, myself, stay rooted in one place unless I have a good reason to move. When people move, it should be with a purpose. And they should move to a particular place, plant their feet, continue to speak, and when they're finished being in that spot, they should move with a purpose, plant their feet, and continue their speech. I'd be far more likely to criticize someone who is moving theatrically without enhancing their speech than I would be to criticize someone for standing in one place. I hear this one a lot too. You drew us in. What the heck does that even mean? Now, first of all, never speak for the entire audience. You don't want to get up there and say, oh, Devin, you were so funny. We all enjoyed your speech so much. Everybody here was laughing. I even saw 3 or 4 people crying because they're laughing so hard. Okay? Actually, I'll tell you, the last part is fine. I observed people crying because they were laughing so hard. That's fine. Everybody loved it and thought it was funny. No, don't speak for the audience, speak for yourself. But this trope, you drew us in, you drew us in. There's so many ways that you could say this. I was intrigued by your speech. You piqued my interest by starting with that very interesting quote. I was engrossed in your description of the path in the redwoods. Talk about your experience of a specific thing from the speech rather than these general things where you say you drew us in. Now, we are living in a COVID time, and this is one that I'm starting to hear fairly often. You should stand up when you speak. Now, we're in a COVID world, as I said, and we need to adjust our speaking style to fit the new medium. And it could be that someone would be effective giving a particular speech if they stood up, stood back, and you could see all of their gestures. But very often you're going to have people sitting here and giving a speech very much like I'm doing. I'll ask you, how many of you have been put off so far by my sitting here and speaking for 15 minutes while sitting in a chair? I think I'm doing okay. And that's something that you just have to keep in mind in the Zoom world. You don't want to say, oh, you should stand up as a hard and fast rule. What you might want to say is, I really would have appreciated this since you were telling a fairy tale. It would have been nice if you'd had broader gestures and been able to reenact the animals more effectively. You can give people feedback about zooming into the camera or sitting back or taking advantage of working within this little box. Some of the best feedback I got, I had my armrests way up on my chair, and so my arms were up here, and I tended to make little gestures. Someone told me I looked like a Tyrannosaurus Rex with tiny little arms. And so I thought, wow, that's really good feedback. I put my armrest down a little bit, and now my hands pop up into the screen every now and again, but they're not in here all the time like little marionettes, little hand puppets the whole time. That was a useful bit of feedback. So don't just go to like hard and fast rules when you're talking about working in Zoom. Look at this particular speech. How effective was it? Could it have been more effective by making some adjustments, and give specific suggestions for how they could be more effective? When you finish your evaluation, it's really important to finish strong. At the end of every evaluation, you should summarize your key points. So, I really appreciated your great vocal variety and the gestures that brought home the characters for me. You probably don't want to jump onto the table and kick the water glasses over as you did, because some people will find that off-putting. But what I liked best of all was the way you mopped up afterward and were a very polite Toastmaster as you apologized to everyone for your grand faux pas. And if you can at all avoid it, and this becomes for me as difficult to avoid as any filler word, I look forward to hearing more of your speeches. That's, again, the Toastmasters trope. I really appreciate it when the evaluator has come up with a conclusion, a concluding sentence that gives some tie back to the evaluation that they've just given, some tie back to the speech, and doesn't just end with, I look forward to more speeches. If you don't do anything else, complete your summation and say, Toastmaster. And then you're finished with your evaluation. All right. Now that's club evaluations, and I'd like to open it up just briefly for anybody who would like to ask a question at this time about what I've said so far.
Dennis, this is Dean. I went to Declan's evaluation workshop. He said that you want to motivate them. How would you do that at the end?
How do you motivate people? It's not just the ending that's got to be motivational. Everything through the evaluation should be worded in such a way that you're giving people encouragement. So it's not, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you should have done this, you shouldn't do that. That's why the you language doesn't work. You can talk about, I appreciated how you did this. I understand that it might be difficult for you to do it as effectively as you might. Here's something that worked for me. And use this kind of language throughout. And then at the very end, you're going to say that you're going to summarize the things that they did well, a couple of areas for improvement, and once again, emphasize the thing that they did very best. And it's that thing they did best that is the hook that brings them back time after time.
Anne has a question.
Dennis, thank you very much for giving us the speech. Now, as you were talking and giving those points, I was thinking to myself, well, what if I had to evaluate Dennis? I can come up with those key points that I thought were very effective and worked for me, but quite honestly, and this is not trying to stroke your ego or anything, but quite honestly, I can't find anything that I would say that I believe that you should work on. So maybe there's someone else who can, and I'm listening intently because I need to work in this area. So what do I do with someone like you who gets up and gives a speech?
There is absolutely no rule that says an evaluation has to be critical of the speaker. You can give a very effective evaluation and only point out the things that were done well. If you really, honest to goodness, can't find anything wrong with it, don't make something up. Just talk about how the good things affected you and how you can use those to improve your own speaking style. Now, that said, trust me, I've been in Toastmasters for 13 years, and the one thing that I've learned over 13 years is I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to gain. And to your point, and actually, very often the best feedback I get is from brand new members because they haven't learned these Toastmasters tropes. They come in here and they just tell me something about what I've just done, and boing, it's completely out of left field. I never would have thought of that. And it's usually something that I can incorporate and become much better so that the next new person who comes in can't get me for that. They have to find something new. There we go. But as we say, and here's a Toastmasters trope, if you get out of Toastmasters, all you can get out of Toastmasters, you never get out of Toastmasters. There's always something you can find, I think, to help somebody to continue to grow. And maybe it is, at times, just giving me that kind of feedback, where you talk about the things that you appreciated and would incorporate into your speaking as well. Devin, did you have a question?
I'm just going over here. You mentioned that part of your evaluation should be focused on audience reaction, and you mentioned that for your evaluations, you like to sit at the back of the room so you can kind of see how the audience is responding. Do you think that element of evaluation for Zoom calls is pretty much non-existent now, or would you actually advise when given an evaluation, or when listening to a speech rather, that you're going to evaluate, would you advise looking at the audience, the other members in their windows?
I look at the people in the gallery view. Yeah, absolutely. I want to see how other people are reacting. If I'm cringing, but everybody else is laughing, I probably won't bring that up as an issue. I don't want to give somebody the impression that, of course, it's completely valid if I want to tell you how I'm reacting to your speech. But if something makes me a little uncomfortable and I check and everybody else is okay with it, then I'm not going to make a big deal out of it in the evaluation. Or maybe I'll just express it that way. I noticed that no one else was put off by what you said, but in this era of Me Too, I think it's that we have to be especially careful when we start talking about issues having to do with gender. Something along that line, that's fine. And I saw Virendra raising his hand.
Hi, Dennis Virendra here. I have question. I have seen when people evaluating right in speech, so they always say, I would like to categorize your speech in 3 sections. And end of the time, I have seen that they run out of time and they had to end up with the speech wherein I have seen they are missing the major point. So how we can incorporate all the points in that sort of or the time frame that we get?
Well, once again, you might find a whole bunch of stuff that whole bunch of stuff is great, a whole bunch of stuff is bad. In a Toastmasters evaluation, there's no reason you have to give all of the things that they need to work on in one particular evaluation. This isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. So we have plenty of time to give evaluations, and they'll receive other evaluations from other evaluators who will focus on the particular points. So this is why I like to pick out 2 things that they did particularly well, 1 or as many as 2 things that would be an area to work on, typically 2. And then that 3rd thing to come back. And I would hesitate to give more than 2 points for improvement in a single evaluation, mostly because it's not going to stick. So you want to pick the ones that you think are most important, especially if you've seen the person developing over a period of time. Sometimes they're making improvements in a particular area, and it might not be even in your mind the thing that they need to work on most, but it's the thing that they're making the most progress on. And so you can give them that little bit of encouragement, a little bit of feedback on that this week, knowing that they'll work on those other parts of their speech sometime in the future and be able to help them to continue to grow in that particular area. And this is why you have to empathize. This is why you have to put yourself in their place to see what information you think this week is going to be most helpful to that particular speaker. Now, one thing that you remind me of, very often people will say, I'm going to give you 3 things that I appreciated and 3 things that I believe you have to work on. And they don't come back to that thing you did best. This is actually following some of the guidelines that they have in the Toastmasters exercises. When I listen to those evaluations, they're always a little painful for me because I do hear the 3 things that they did well, and then 3 things they did where they could improve, and you're leaving them on the note of criticism. And that just doesn't ring right for me. And it certainly doesn't ring right when you're giving an evaluation in a contest. So let's talk about the difference between giving a contest evaluation and giving an evaluation in a club situation. First of all, let's be absolutely clear. I can't tell you how to win contests. I'm no expert because there are no experts in Toastmasters. Contests are judged events. Judges are Toastmasters, and therefore, judges are not experts. Now, a few years back, I recited my poem, The Barbarian's Beard, for the District 4 Tall Tales contest. I nailed it. Damn, I was good. I thought I had won that contest. And when they were handing out the trophies, when they got down to 3, 2, and now they're giving out the first place, I almost started walking up there and boom, they give it to somebody else. I didn't even place. Now, a couple of months ago, I recited the same poem and I took first place in District 101. Same speech, different judges, different day, different result. There is no way to predict what will happen. Okay? But what I can tell you is how I prepared and executed my evaluations when I took first place one year and third place another year in District 57 contests. You can use my techniques or you can combine them with your own. But what it all comes down to is the judges. You can deliver the best evaluation of your life and lose because one of the judges ate a bad piece of fish that day. There's just no way to be sure, right? With that caveat, this is how I prepare and give a contest evaluation. So, pretty much the same as a regular club evaluation. Do everything you would in a regular evaluation. You're going to pick those 2 things that are great, 2 things to improve, and 1 thing that was best of all. Some people will tell you that you should use third person. Wasn't Abhijit great? Abhijit did this, Abhijit did that, Abhijit did that. There's a funny book called How to Be a Jewish Mother by Dan Greenberg. And in that book, he talks about third person invisible. This is when you talk about somebody who is in the same room with you, as if they weren't there. Does he like spaghetti? Things like that. So this is not the way you want to give somebody an evaluation. So I always speak directly to the speaker and talk about them in a conversational way, the way I would if it was just the 2 of us in one room. And I give real feedback during the contest. I don't pull my punches. I look for a place where I'm going to be able to uniquely comment on how this person could improve. One of the things you'll notice if you watch evaluation contests, there's always something that everybody mentions. And when you think about it, if everybody mentions that thing, it's a net 0 points for everybody there. So look for the most obvious things. And as you prepare, you're going to just give those as throwaway comments. Of course, we appreciated I appreciated your great use of gestures, but more important than that was the way you used your facial expressions to give very subtle emotions that perhaps weren't as obvious were you not in the Zoom medium. Give them really specific, really unique feedback to the best of your ability so that you're not just like all of the other speakers. Now, in a contest though, you have to remember that this is a performance. It is a speech and not just an evaluation that you're going to give and set away. So you need to have an introduction. You have to have transitions between each section of your evaluation, and you have to have a conclusion that ties everything up nicely in a bundle. Now, it also has to have some flair to it. You want to use clever turns of phrase. You want to have some eloquent elegance in the feedback that you give. And it's important that you write down the details and think of some ways to describe them in a colorful way that, again, leaves the attention on the speaker, not on you, but gives them encouraging feedback that they're going to be able to use using some very elegant language. You also have to be engaging and entertaining. So you can give the best evaluation ever heard of with super topics, but if you give it in a monotone and you look down at your notes the entire time, then no one is likely to choose you as the very best evaluator today. The other thing that you have to know for a contest is the ballot. Now, in District 101, they use a different ballot, but this is an international club, so I want to be sure that we understand the scoring according to the official Toastmasters ballot. And by the way, if you follow this, it's going to work in the District 101 contest as well. So I've just trimmed out the things that they look for as judges during the evaluation contest. The ratio of the numbers here is what's important to pay attention to. So first off, the analytical quality. As you were watching this speech, you picked things out that they did well and things that could be even better. That's 40 points of the evaluation, is just being able to pick things out from the speech. 30 points have to do with the recommendations you give. So they need to be specific, helpful, and they have to be positive, always expressed in a way that is going to encourage the listener. So only 15 points are on the technique, the way that you deliver it. So you don't want to spend a whole lot of time being concerned with being sympathetic and sensitive. Of course, you want those things, but if you just stand there and mollify them, then you're not going to get extra points for that, okay? Really key, though, is that 15 points is the summation. So let's say that you gave an absolutely perfect evaluation. You had great insights, wonderful feedback, and did everything right, except you don't say, in summation, you did these two things well, these two things could have been better, and this was the best thing of all. If you don't say that, you lose 15 points. Your A plus, 100%, has just gone down to a B, 85. So that's why you have to have a summation. And because judges are humans, you've got to use two flashlights and bring them in. So you say, in conclusion, or in summation, before you start the summation. Now, the summation isn't the end of your speech. The end of your speech is that conclusion we talked about before, one that ideally ties back to the introduction. So you do a summation, then a 1 to 2 sentence conclusion. That's how you end up your speech. Now, this is the form that I use when I'm in a contest. Well, actually, I use this in my club evaluations as well, because I'm always preparing for a contest. I always give a contest evaluation in a club, and I think that Abhijit and some of the other people who are in clubs with me can back me up on that. So when you go to the contest, you're given one blank piece of paper. Paper has two sides, so you can use both sides of the paper. I flip it over and I draw this grid very quickly. So I put an eyeball at the top, an ear in the middle, and a smile at the bottom. That represents saw, heard, felt. At the top, I put a plus sign, things that went well, and a minus sign, things that could have been even better. Now I'm all set. As I'm listening to the speech, I jot down those little parts that I'm looking for into one of these quadrants. In this case, I could follow your gestures easily in Zoom. Hey, that's a positive. I'll put that in the plus column there under things I could see. For things I could hear in the minus column, I had trouble hearing parts of your speech. I was touched by the story of the kitten with the crooked paw. That's a positive feeling. That goes down into that box. So I capture them here, and then when the speech is over, oh, I should mention, I just added this in. This is my clipboard. When you're going to be in a contest, always have a clipboard. Right? Now, there's two reasons for that. One is so that you're certain to have a hard surface that you can write upon. The other reason is that when you get up to give your evaluation, you don't want to have just a flimsy piece of paper in your hand, because the paper is going to shake and rattle and roll if you have a tendency to show your nerves that way. So having it clipped to a clipboard makes it nice and firm and keeps you from embarrassing yourself overly much, but you get out there. The other thing I need to mention is, how many pens should you have? At least two. How many times have you started to write and then you run out of ink just as you get going? So be sure, if you're going to take notes, that you've got two pens handy. That's one of the reasons I had to run away just at the beginning of the meeting today, is I only had one pen right here at my desk. All right. So we've got our notes ready, and they give us 5 minutes to prepare our notes. And this is how I do it, in this order. Okay. The first thing I do, and you'll notice that the numbers are out of order on the page. First thing I do is the summation. Why? If all I get done is the summation, I can get up and give an evaluation. If it's just really hard for me to get that part done, I've got all the pieces I need. So I'm looking at the back side of the page. I say, okay, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And here are two things I can improve on. and here's the thing that was best. And I just write down one sentence for each of those. That actually takes about a minute. Then I think, wow, overall, what was my impression of this speech? What was it that I'm going to take away from that? Wow, that should really go into my conclusion. And I write a 2 to 3 sentence conclusion at that point. Now, step 3, I write an introduction that is going to tie into that conclusion. So the conclusion might be something like, your speech today was a real gift to me, and I appreciate you bringing me that present. And then at the introduction, you can say something like, thank you so much for bringing me this. I enjoyed your presentation, and I considered it a present. Let me tell you why. Something along that line. So now you've got this nice echo in your speech, and people go, oh, nice, that was put together really well. They gave a nice speech. So you've got your introduction, your conclusion. The rest of the time, that 5 minutes, you can spend working on the body. This is where you elaborate on the good and the good points and points for improvement, and try to think of some elaborate ways that you can describe it, something elegant, something especially a great metaphor that you can use to illustrate these thoughts. Now, when you're good at this, you can get the summation done in a minute. Very often I'm thinking about what the conclusion, what the takeaway is going to be while they're speaking, and I'll jot down ideas during the speech. Then I can get that nice book, the bookends to the evaluation, and spend the rest of the time pumping it up to get it as nice as it can be. Now, I will choose the particular things to talk about in a particular order, so that if I say, I really appreciated your vocal variety, that was terrific. I liked your gestures, and the first thing that I want to correct them on is, one of the things about your gestures, though, is that very often they went outside the window. So if you can watch yourself on screen, so I have a nice transition from these are things you did well into things that could be even better. Give that second point that could be improved, and then you can always fall back on the, all of that said, the thing I loved best of all about your speech, transition into that thing that went very best. In summation, 2 things you did well, 2 things that could improve, the thing you did best, and thank you for the present that you brought us today by giving us that speech. Toastmaster. And you may notice that I no longer say Madam Toastmaster or Mr. Toastmaster, but Toastmaster, which is fine. When you're in the speech contest, it's really important to have a clear ending to your speech. So there's nothing better than saying Toastmaster, because then the timer is going to stop. But if you pause for effect and you smile at the audience, and then you say, back to you, you might have just gone over 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So let's be sure that everybody knows specifically when you have stopped your speech. All right. Yes, 2 things you did well, transition to something better. 1 more thing that could be better, transition to what they did best. All right. In the finale, you summarize your key points, reflect back to the opening statement. When should you start your summary? Now, I see so many people get the red card, and that's when they introduce 1 more thing that they really thought was important. Right? In the contest, at the yellow, you should be thinking about getting to your summary. Right? You don't have to start your summary at the yellow, but that's when you start moving toward it, because you should complete your summary by the time the red card comes up. Then you can do your conclusion, 1 or 2 sentences, and know that you're going to be within time. But holy cow, if you forgot your best point and you see the red card, sadly, that speaker doesn't get to hear your best piece of advice today. because there wasn't time. And remember that you're in a contest to win and not just there to help this particular person with their speaking skills. All right. So once again, that's all of my advice. That's everything I know about this, but I welcome any questions at this point.
Dennis, do you think the audience will feel left out if the evaluator just speaks just to the speaker?
I don't know. Do you think that the audience feels left out when the speaker is speaking? No. No, actually, the audience is there to see you give an evaluation. And if you give an evaluation to the speaker, you're really not there to talk to the audience in the same way that the speaker was just speaking with the audience, right? So no, I have never found that to be the case. Now, that doesn't mean that I ignore the audience. I make eye contact with them. And I talk about, I can look people directly in the eye while I talk about what I felt, what I saw, what I heard. Well, when I talk about something that I noticed in the speaker's speech, I'll be looking right at the speaker and tell them how that affected me so clearly, right? So I don't have a problem with that myself in terms of mixing it up, looking at members of the audience, looking at the speaker when it's appropriate to do that. One thing, of course, to avoid when you're making eye contact with people, it's different in the Zoom world right now, but even in gallery view here, you'll see me sometimes looking over at one particular person, then I'll look at someone else. When you're in a physical location, you want to be sure that you look at one person, hold your eye contact until you complete a thought or idea, then move on. You don't want to stick with somebody too long past one or two sentences, and you don't want to be a lawn sprinkler, you know, where you're looking at everybody in the room. You look at somebody, you make a point, and then you move on to the next person. Hold on to their eyes, let them go, and then move on.
Dennis.
All right, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, Dan? Uh-huh.
Yes. When you're giving an evaluation at the club level, when you're not trying to win a contest, do you still do the full summary and conclusion and all that, or do you skip them in order to spend more time on the advice for the individual?
Again, maybe I'm selfish. I'm always preparing so that someday I can be in a contest, or so that I can give a seminar like this one about being in a contest. So I do always try to have an introduction and conclusion. I don't always succeed, but that's the nice thing about Toastmasters. You don't have to succeed every single time. But that's something I always work for. Okay, we do need to move on, don't we, Abhi? I see you getting worried.
One last question and then we can move on.
Okay.
Shwaki, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. So Dennis, you mentioned in the first part that we should not use things like you drew us all in. You don't have to drag everyone, but you have to talk to the speaker. And we also have to make sure during the speech that what our audience reaction or what our audience doing. So is it okay to mention that you grabbed audience attention from things like that, or it's contradicting to what you said before? How do we handle that part?
Well, once again, you shouldn't say, you grabbed our attention. That's not right. What you can say is, I noticed everyone was leaning in when you said this particular line. And so that's perfectly okay. I observed the people in the room. But again, I think Judge Schutte would say, oh, that's hearsay, if you were to say what other people were thinking during the speech. Great, thank you for that. That's a good clarification. All right, so we're ready to have an evaluation and then evaluation of evaluations.
Perfect.
So I'll be quiet. You can introduce our target speaker, please.
You want to unshare your screen?
Oh, well, yes, I do. Yeah, why don't I do that?
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you for the so many great tips. So the most effective way to improve evaluation, doing evaluation, is through practice. Next, we're going to have Derek to give a speech. And then we invite 6 evaluators to give their evaluations. And Dennis will give evaluations of those evaluations, so we know what are good and what can be improved. Next, we have Derek to give his test speech titled EYC. And I don't know what EYC stands for, but let's find out. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you very much. Can you?
Who's the timer? Sorry.
Am I audible?
Yes. Who's the timer? Abji?
I will time it.
Okay, great.
Okay, let me pin the timer. And I can share my screen.
Yeah, I see your screen.
Okay. So before we get started, for those of you who are seeing me in a little small box, if you would like to, you can move your cursor up to the top of your screen, your window, and you'll see view options. And once you have your the drop down, you can select side-by-side view. That is where my presentation will be minimized and you can see more of my beauty. And just let me pin the timer because I have a tendency to speak a little bit long. So I am ready to go. Have you ever wondered why an athlete would stretch before he or she goes for a run or for a warm-up? It was something that I thought about, especially when I started my preparing for my speech. And I realized that in order for you to go further, do more than you've done before, you have to train those muscles, stretch, so that you can get more out of it. Even with an elastic band, it may be so small, yay small, and as you stretch it out, there's so much more you can get out of it. Well, so too are we. For us to do more, we have to stretch and EYC, expand our capacity. Now, to help me, I did a little research and I came up with, identified 5 areas or 5 C's of expanding your capacity. Yes, you say, there are only 2 C's in capacity, but no, there are actually 5 C's in capacity, but I'll focus on 3 of them. And this is by Sheila Kane. The first step to expanding our capacity is to be confident. We have to be confident because in confidence, we have the strength and the courage to do things that we would not ordinarily do. Next, connection. We need to learn how to connect with others, reach out and expand our reach. Tap into those who are able to pour into us, and we can get more out of them from insights and viewpoints. But the 3 I want to focus on today are primarily these. Competency. See, most of us can have that courage and the confidence to do things, but have we ever been in a workplace where there's an eager, confident employee who wants to do every and anything, but don't know nothing and causes everything just to go haywire? So it's very important for us to build our competency. And in building our competency, we learn more, especially those things that areas that we're weak in. See, as leaders, we all have strengths and weaknesses. We have to be able to identify what our weaknesses are and work on those and not focus so much on just what our primary strengths are. Because if we only focus on our strengths, the weaknesses will catch up with us in the long run, thus making us ineffective leaders and individuals. Thirdly, character. Character is the foundation of anything that we do. I would liken this to getting a pizza. I love pizza, by the way. I learned as a pizza maker that the worst thing that could happen to a pizza is a thin center in the crust. And why is that? Because if you have a thin center, the oven bakes the toppings a whole lot, drawing out all of its juices. Those juices that we'll just love. However, once that pizza comes out of the oven, when it's weighted down with that pepperoni and mushrooms, instead of having a pizza that stands up, that you can bite, it drops. And what happens? Your toppings land all over the floor, and you do not get to enjoy that pizza as much as you would have liked to. So it's very important that we have character that can stand up to almost anything. And as we increase our capacity, our strength of character should increase as well. Because if our strength of character does not increase, then our capacity is weakened. And we are leaking leadership capabilities when we don't have good character. Who will follow us? Who will follow me? Last but not least is commitment. Now, commitment, this isn't just sit on your tush and say, I am committed. This requires action. This means that you're in it for the long haul. You're willing to do what it takes to get the job done. It doesn't matter who else is pulling their weight, you know. You are there doing what you need to do because you know it needs to be done. It requires action. So character, competence, and commitment are the three things I want you to focus on for the next 2 weeks as you work on expanding your capacity. But in talking about action and commitment, we have to look at, I'll share 3 things with you that will help you give those capacity action. And the first thing is stop only doing the things that you always do or you're comfortable doing. Stop it. Next, stop only doing what is expected of you. You have to be able to go above and beyond your expectations. That is how you put those things into action. Last but not least, stop doing the important things occasionally. We have to be consistent with it and do it on a regular basis. Keep on doing it. Keep on doing it. And that is by John Maxwell. John Maxwell also says that as leaders, we grow, and with growth comes increased capacity. And as we grow, our capacity is expanded. And with expanded capacity comes increased output. But understand this, with increased output does not mean or does not correlate to us having increased impact. For us to have increased impact, sometimes we need to do things to get more. We need to do things just a little bit different. We cannot continue the same way, all the time and expect to get the same results. We have to stand up and do something different. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Derek. All right. So let's move on to our evaluations. We have 6 evaluators. Yes, Abhijit?
Let me put them in the breakout room and give them 5 minutes.
Okay, Do they know when they order?
I'll put them in. Yeah, they know the order.
Okay. So do we give them like the first evaluator 1 minute or 2 minutes?
No,
to prepare?
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yes.
All right. So the first evaluator will be Renee.
No, Pradeep. Pradeep is the first evaluator.
Oh, so it changed your.
Yes, I put it in the names order. Okay.
Oh, okay. So Pradeep will be the first evaluator.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah, 5 minutes to prepare for your evaluation. Go through.
Yes, I'm going to put you in again. All evaluators, please join the breakout room. Lloyd, can you accept the, yeah, perfect. Pradeep, you have 2.5 minutes, and then we will start your evaluation, okay?
Do you have to join the breakout room as well?
No, you stay here.
For the audience, the evaluation will be 2 to 3 minutes long. And the evaluator will need to speak for a minimum of 2 minutes. And at the 3 minutes, the red card, when the red card is flashed, you can go at most 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So that's what I believe, that otherwise you'll be disqualified in the evaluation contest. Ready, Pradeep?
40 more seconds. Yes, Carol.
I just want to let everybody know I will be sending a text in the chat to get their email address to send the recording from today.
Perfect.
Thank you.
What do we?
9.
Right. Now we have Pradeep to give his evaluation of Derek's speech, EYC. Welcome, Pradeep.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Derek, what an awesome speech to give, to motivate people and to inspire to get out of their comfort zone. I liked your speech a lot in 2 aspects, content and delivery. I would like to club both of them, and I want to give my 2 points. You had descriptive slides for the content, but the delivery was great. For each C, you had a story. Story is what motivates people, and story is what keeps people engaged, and I loved it. I loved each and every story of yours to keep me engaged in your speech. And your star slide to kind of motivate people to go out of their comfort zone. And you gave your explanation for each, which I liked a lot. There are 2 things which I would do differently. Number 1, what I would kind of suggest is, in the introduction actually was great. You told people, oh, why do people stretch to go further? But also try to give a pause for a second or 2 after that to keep people engaged. What other thing, what I would do differently is, in all my Toastmasters speeches, I actually relate my story back to Toastmasters. The reason of us coming to Toastmasters and motivating ourselves to be here is the first thing to do. For example, I had a speech where I talked about my marathon journey from mile 1 to mile 26. Well, mile 1 was easy, mile 26 was really hard. I connected back to speech number 1 to speech number 10 in my CC manual, where the speech number 1 is kind of relatively easy and the speech number 10 becomes really hard. It kind of relates it. So I would kind of do it differently to connect your speech back to our Toastmasters journey. To summarize it, I liked your slides. I liked your story for each C you had, each stop you had, and you motivated people to kind of to get out of their comfort zone. That is what I like. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you. Now you can relax. And then Abhijit, are you bringing the second evaluator?
Yes, I'm going to bring the second evaluator.
Who is our second evaluator?
Shwaki.
Can you hear me okay?
Ishwaki, hi.
Yes.
Are you ready, Ishwaki?
Yes.
All right. So now let's welcome our second evaluator, Ishwaki, to give her evaluation of Derek's speech.
Thank you. Derek, thank you so much for the speech. I learned by the end of the weekend how to be having 5 C's of being impactful and how to stop doing the 3 things to make me more productive. I liked your slides because they were not verbose. They were having 3 to 4 words in each bullet, so they did not take my attention and I was able to concentrate on you. I liked how you used gestures and props about using the elastic bands and how you showed us how athletes train and stretch their muscles. But for me to see you more clearly, I would prefer that I can see you completely. I was seeing your head being cut and also your background and your clothes were not completely in contrast. So I would either choose a virtual background, which like what I am using completely plain, and then my clothes are with contrast so I can see you more clearly. The third thing I liked was you emphasized different words like tap into those. Or in the 5th point of commitment, you said requires action, and then you motivated us. I missed your vocal variety at some another points which I thought can be more effective. If I were to give you that example, see, as leaders, we have strengths and we have weakness. We only focus on strength. That makes us ineffective leaders. If you put more vocal variety and more pause, that would give everyone as audience and especially me to grab what you're saying. You had wonderful content, but I thought if you would have paused more, I would have absorbed the great information even more with more impact. And I also felt that you rushed little in the end when you started talking about how to stop and how to conclude when you were talking about the John Maxwell. So I missed that you did not had a strong call to action and you did not have good vocal variety in that. And I would have enjoyed your speech even better if I would have got more of that vocal variety and pauses. The best thing I found about your speech was as you use 5C and 3 stops, it is going to stay with me for more time. I'm not going to forget it. So I would, in summarization, I would let you concentrate on how you can have more vocal variety and pauses. Use gestures greatly. You can see how you can use the frames well. And I really enjoyed your speech with the great learnings. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Ishwaki. Thank you. So, Abhijit, let's
Yes.
get our third evaluator.
Yep. Lloyd is our next evaluator.
All right, thank you, Abhijit. Wyatt, are you here now? Can't see him yet.
He's here.
Can you see me?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, now you're here. All right, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. So our third evaluator is Lloyd. Lloyd,
Thank you.
it's yours.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful, that was a very good presentation. I felt very energized when I heard the story. It really hit all the main points, certainly for me, when I look at this very COVID-related environment whereby we're looking to find different things and different ways to improve ourselves. I saw good physical gestures. The body gestures was very good when you were exercising. You actually showed the exercise movements and you showed them correctly. You also had some very good props. You used the rubber band or elastic band to show how one would expand your cells by doing that. So that was very good. I also heard a very well-constructed and well-researched speech. You talked about the people who you gave attribution to, which was Sheila and John Maxwell. So you made reference to those. So certainly as an engineer, or certainly those coming from an engineering background, we would always like to find out the source of that information. So you gave that reference information, which is also very good. As I said before, I felt very energized when you were doing the stretching. It made me want to go out and find ways to actually expand and build my capacity. It wanted me to go out there and do something, building that confidence and really building that confidence well. A couple of things I would have liked to have seen you do. I would have liked to, when you talked about you like pizza, I think many of us like pizza. It would have been good to have just given a little bit more details as to the reason why you like pizza. Was it because of the flavors? Was it because of the different toppings that you like? Was it because it was something that filled you up? Was it because it was a fast food that really hit home, or it was something that you grew up with and the smells of those pizzas really brought you back home again? That would have been good. Another thing, when you talked about expanding the confidence, it would have been good as you finished up, you know, you could have been the product of that environment whereby you expanded your confidence. It would have been good for you to have been walking around with your chest out or walking around with a big smile on your face to show that it really had a positive impact on the things that you have done. So it would have been good to have referenced that. So in summation, if the physical gestures, there were great physical gestures. You could see them, you could actually feel them. The props that you used as well was very good with the rubber band or the elastic band showing expansion. The speech itself was very well constructed, very well researched, and you hit upon all the main points. And certainly, I think the best part of it was regards to the physical gestures and the props that you use, as well as the difference with the vocal variety and up and down to actually bring a point home. Very well constructed speech. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Leloid. Thank you. Navjeet?
Yes.
That's been
yes.
our first evaluator.
Evan is our next evaluator.
Devin. Okay, thank you. Is Devin here? Oh, yeah. So Devin. Devin is our first evaluator. Are you ready? All right. Now it's all yours, Devin.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Derek, what a great speech on expanding our capacity and fulfilling our potential. One of the greatest things about your speech was that it was extremely easy to follow. It had just impeccable organization. You talked about the 5 C's of expanding your capacity, and then segued into discussing the 3 stops that could perhaps prevent us from achieving that. I'm not sure if you actually needed the slides to convey your points, but they did not detract from your speech at all, so they were there. Another element that's more on the micro scale that I really liked were your metaphors. So you started by talking about how athletes stretch just like we want to stretch our capacity, and you even brought up the analogy of the rubber band. Then you also talked about how with our character, if we have poor character, then we're like pizza with a thin center. And as a connoisseur of pizza myself, I really appreciated that. A couple things that I thought could even been better for the future is a couple times you spoke in kind of a peculiarly slow cadence. This worked occasionally. At the very beginning, you said you are able to go further, do more than you've done before. I thought that was excellent. You brought that kind of slow talk back a couple more times after that, and I thought it didn't really quite fit with what you were saying as far as the content goes. On the more macro level, I thought that the speech could have been personalized a bit more. Like I said, you had great advice and great information, and you quoted or you cited the people who gave you the ideas that you talked about, but I would have really enjoyed to hear something from your own life about how you expanded your capacity or a stop that came in the way in your own life. And that would have really helped develop your message even more. So overall, it was a very insightful and motivating speech. It had a wonderful message. And the best thing about your speech was that you gave advice that literally anyone can follow, super easy to understand. At the end of the speech, you asked us to expand our capacity for 2 weeks. Well, I think I'm going to one-up you. I'm going to try to expand my capacity for 2 years or more. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you. Abhi? Let's got our fifth evaluator. Do we have the fifth one?
Karen is the next evaluator.
Thank you, Abhijit. Karen, the fifth evaluator.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, and thank you especially to Derek for that inspiring speech that really did inspire me to expand my capacity with some simple yet striking visuals. And I had some ideas on how you can make even greater use of these visuals. And I was also really excited to learn more about the 5 C's. Now first, right away, you helped us with the Zoom tip. I actually have always wondered, how can I see the speaker and the presentation at the same time? Thank you for drawing my attention to that option on my screen. And then that let me see you when you actually did the stretching gesture and used the elastic band to show. That gave me a really powerful image, a metaphor to keep in mind for when you showed your slides. And I like how your slides were very simple, how they really showed what your main points were. I have a tendency to crowd my slides with too much text and too many flashy visuals and animations. But you avoided that by really sticking to what's the focus of your speech. And you can make even greater use of your visuals by using them as a signpost to help me as an audience member to follow your speech. And you did this right away by using that mnemonic of the 5 C's. But then you mentioned, oh, you really wanted me to focus on 3 C's. And so I think it may have helped me if you had shown which 3 C's you wanted me to focus on. And you also used some really powerful words like confidence or competence. But then when you actually spoke, you read them slightly differently. You said, we need to be confident, or we want to work on our competency. And I sometimes struggle to follow where we were in your speech just because the words were slightly different. Now, I don't want you to misconstrue this as I want you to read directly from the slide, because one of the greatest things that you did in your speech was to actually expand on the points, not just by reading them out loud, but also really tying them to real life examples. When you talked about competence, you talked about those people who just talk a big game but don't really know what they're doing. We've all related to that example. And when you talked about things that I should stop doing, I really felt that those connected to your points about the 5 C's, but without reusing those words. So you were able to expand on those points by using different words, but to show your main points. And so what I wanted to really, to let you know that I really appreciated that you use these great visuals, and to make even greater use of them, you could improve the consistency between your speech and the visuals, but don't lose what you did best of how you really expanded on your text with real life examples. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Karen. All right, so let's have our last evaluator. Abhijit, do we have our last subject?
Yes, Renee is here. Yeah.
All right, Renee, just you're ready. If you're ready, just start.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, you ready?
Hi, Derek. My brain was stretched. That was a wealth of information. I loved it. Thank you so much for taking the time to educate us on a topic of your passion. I have a lot of things I love about your speech. The first of all is the message that you try to deliver. And you use a very organized structure, 5 C's, then focus on 3 of them and then suggest the potential actions to take to tell us the importance of 5 C's to stretch ourselves. And my favorite one is commitment. I am so ready to stretch with you the entire time. And also, I really, really like the content, especially when you actually were telling me about your personal story. When you told that story about the juicy pizza with toppings, definitely got me ready for a late night snack. It's 9:30 p.m. here on a Friday night. I am committed to you. See how I like that C commitment? And I love the personal story is because that's when I get to know a little bit more about you as a person. I definitely smiled when you mentioned food, and it was almost an intimate moment of connecting on a personal level, just to get to know that you are a person that likes pizza, just like me. And I really liked your speech, and I think there's potential 2 ways that you could improve. One way is the effectiveness of Zoom. With the virtual background and the glare of your glasses, sometimes unfortunately, I think that I'm losing a little bit of a spark in your eyes because it just got reflected away by the screen. And when you're extremely passionate, guess what? Instead of you looking at me, you're actually doing this. Your eyes are actually off the screen. So that's something that I would definitely take a look at, maybe the recording video, just to see if you would like to improve that, because eyes are the windows to your souls, right? We would love to see them during your entire speech. And from the content perspective, man, my brain was stretched. It was a lot for sure. And perhaps using some of the personal story to share like why 5 C's, why the 5 C's, and perhaps even pick one of them, or even elaborate a little bit on why we should stop doing the 3 things that you asked us to stop doing. Because I think the 2 things that you shared with us, one was stop doing the same thing if I expect to get different results, or stop only doing the important things occasionally. Then I was thinking, what if the important things was actually not that important, so should I keep doing it? So I felt like I was missing a little bit of the key point. But if you tell me a personal story, I'm like, okay, that's why I should be doing that. I think that would drive home even stronger. Anyway, I thought it was a really, really great speech because you focus on the message, the content, and with a little effectiveness in Zoom focus and some content adjustment, I am sure that we'll be all ready to stretch not just horizontally, but deeper with you as well. Thank you so much for taking the time, Toastmasters.
Thank you. All right, so we've done all the evaluations. Let's give another round of applause to all 6 evaluators. Great job. Actually, I really appreciate everybody's courage, because Abhijit has been running it similarly to an evaluation contest, but it is a size of a real contest, 6 evaluators. The good thing that we're going to get feedbacks from Dennis on the evaluations. It's the evaluation on the evaluations that we rarely get. So this is a good opportunity for us to learn the evaluation. What are the good things they did and what are the places that they could improve? So now let's bring back Dennis. Dennis.
Thank you. I've been scratching frantically here, trying to keep up with all aspects of it. So the things that I found in Derek's speech, I would have jumped on the fact that he had 5 C's. And in my introduction, I would have said, I appreciated the way you exemplified certain aspects of the 5 C's: confidence, connection, competence, character, and commitment. In particular, I felt that you were very confident as you spoke. I was impressed with your stage presence as you were speaking. I felt that you're a very competent speaker. It was well organized and you had done a great deal of research and were able to address each of your points rather directly. But part of that competence actually is something that for me detracted from the speech, because what was missing were personal stories about how it affected you or how it affected someone else. I believe that you were giving me valuable information, but I had trouble making a connection to it. Given that that's one of the 5 C's that you're talking about, that personal connection would have really brought it home more clearly for me. There were a couple of small gaffes here. You talked about E, and I'm even confused at this point. You either said EOC, expand our capacity, or EYC, but you flipped it immediately, and that threw me completely out of the speech at that point. So be certain that you have it on your slides, ideally, so that I know exactly what you're going to be talking about in terms of expand our capacity or expand your capacity. That would have helped me in that particular instance. But the most important thing that I take away from this is your character and your commitment. It's very clear that the approach that you are taking to life is as strong as the approach that you took in this very dynamic speech. I greatly appreciate learning the 5 C's today, and will take this away as my action item. I will spend the next 2 weeks focusing on those 3 C's, Madam Toastmaster. Okay, something along that line. Now, Pradeep, you started your evaluation with, "What a great speech." That was your introduction. That's the one you worked on for that second minute, is that correct? Okay, so everybody's going to come out and say, "What a great speech." And what a great speech is absolutely contentless at that point. So really think about your introduction and how it's going to tie into the conclusion, and say something meaningful right from the start. Let's see. Oh, you gave advice. You always like to relate the speech back to Toastmasters. That's great for you, but this is what I'm talking about. Avoid the temptation of rewriting someone else's speech in your image. It could be that that works very well for you, and I applaud you for having a formula that you use, but your formula is not going to work for everybody. And to me, as a judge, I would find that off-putting. What I did like, I like that you were short in your evaluation. There's no reason that you have to use the entire 3 minutes. I thought you did a great job on your summary as well. You did summarize your main points. That's something that I was looking for. Now, one of the important things I forgot to mention in my lecture is that the first thing you do as an evaluator is write down the name of the person you're evaluating, so that you're certain that you pronounce it correctly when you're giving your evaluation. In this case, evaluator number 2, I did not write down her name. And so I'm not prepared to name the person who gave the second evaluation. It was Ishwaki. There we go. Now I can see your name. There we are. But huge mistake. Can you imagine getting up at a evaluation contest and saying, "And Sport over there did a great job, didn't you, Tiger?" Yeah, so we want to avoid that. What I liked about your evaluation, Ishwaki, is that you had some great points. You definitely could have slowed down for me because I had trouble following all of the points. Now, it may seem like I'm being conservative by saying have 2 things that they did well, 1, maybe 2 things where they could improve, the 1 thing they did best of all. You had more than that. And the problem I had following your evaluation is that you bounced back and forth between positives and things to improve upon. And when you do that, it's hard for old people like me to follow along and be sure that I understand as you introduce a new concept, whether it's going to be a positive or a negative. So a big part of this is being sure that you're making it easy for the people who are listening. You've got to have it so well organized that nobody can mistake it when they're judging your evaluation. I thought you did a nice job, though, of talking about all 5 of the C's and all 3 of the stops in that particular case. Lloyd, you thought that the speech was very good. In fact, you thought it was so very good, and so many of the things that were very good, that you said very good a lot. There are so many other things that we can say other than very good. That's something that you want to listen to, just like any other filler word. Be sure that you're saying something elegant, eloquent, and something very specific to how that was. So your gestures were graceful is so much better than your gestures were very good, that sort of thing. I really appreciated the way you focused on how well constructed the speech was. You didn't just say it was well constructed, you illustrated without summarizing the entire speech. And when you got to your summation, you did the best summation of any of the speakers tonight in terms of reiterating your best points. So that was great. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I take that back. Oh, I see my note. You see, I thought you were doing a great job, but I noticed that you didn't summarize the areas of improvement. You only summarized the areas that had been done well. So in that summary, in a contest setting, be sure that you say, these two things were great, these things could have been better, but best of all is this thing that I'm going to say before I get into my dynamite conclusion. Okay. Devin, very nice. Again, Devin, you started with what a great speech. So everybody, let's remember, we're not going to start with what a great speech. We're going to have something else to say, and you do that by writing it down. And suggesting everybody, spend the time to actually write the conclusion, actually write the introduction, and read it when you're in the contest so that you get it right. It's perfectly okay. I like easy to follow your impeccable organization. That's the kind of elegant language that I'm looking for. That was quite good. Slides. You started talking about the slides, and I wasn't sure whether you were saying a positive or a negative. It was kind of a meh, because you said your slides didn't necessarily enhance, but they didn't detract, so it was okay that they were there. That sort of bland statement, you can take it completely out of the evaluation, and it's actually going to make the evaluation stronger. At certain points, you said you spoke with a slow cadence here, you spoke with the same slow cadence later, it didn't work as well. I felt, always remember to bring it back to you. I noticed you speaking with a slow cadence, and it really worked for me at the beginning, but the same cadence didn't work as well for me later on. It seemed to detract from the emotion of what you're saying. You actually hit on the point that I think one other taught, which was the lack of personal stories and the importance of using them. And so that was something that you captured that would have made you a standout in the contest. So well done there. And I did appreciate your conclusion that harkened back to the speech and to your introduction. So lots of things done well there. Karen, once again, you had a lot of points. You tried to foreshadow in your introduction that you were going to talk about the slides and how they worked in some ways, and in other ways they didn't, and I'll tell you more about that later on. It then got kind of muddled as you were giving the evaluation, and you were kind of bouncing back and forth between positive comments and negative comments about the slides. And so once again, this is something I really want to bring down. You have to make it easy for the judges to follow, so that because they're making their notes the way I was, kind of frantically jotting them down. If I have to take time to think about what you just said, I'm not listening to what you're saying now. And if I'm not listening to what you're saying now, your score is going down, not because of you or the quality of your evaluation, but because of my inability to follow it. Right? So make it easy for old people. Take pretty honors. Yeah. And Renee, I liked the fact that your brain was stretched and you hearkened back to it be careful when you have an introduction, which is great, and you've got a conclusion that's going to harken back, that you do it at the conclusion, because you did it before the conclusion. And it said that my brain was stretched. It was stretched so far that, oh no, now it's a criticism of his speech. And so that took away from that magic little bookends thing that I was talking about earlier on. And you did the equivalent of what a great speech, but you did it toward the end, a really, really great speech. Really and very are two words that you can absolutely exclude from any evaluation to make it more effective. But you did also catch the lack of personal stories. Actually, you talked about how pizza was a personal story. You got to know him better through his analogy of pizza. That's probably true, but it didn't actually strike me as being a story about himself or how he had applied these principles. So I think you were onto something there, but I'm not sure that the feedback was appropriate for this speech in this particular time. And those are the things that I caught. Overall, though, this was an amazing set of evaluations, certainly something that I would expect to see at a contest level. And with some tweaks, I can see all of you being champions in the future. Thank you for your attention. I'll turn it back over to our Toastmaster of the evening, Tong.
Thank you so much, Dennis. That was so helpful, both to the evaluators and to the audience. And I think that's just the last item of the meeting, but what a fun night. We have accomplished so much. First, a great presentation by Dennis with so many excellent tips for doing effective evaluation. Then we heard a great speech by Derek. And then the 6 evaluators did the way like a speech evaluation contest. And the most important, most fun part for me is to hear the evaluation of the evaluations by Dennis. All right, thank you so much, everyone. And do we want to continue with some questions for Dennis, or shall we just?
Yes, we can continue with questions.
Okay.
Ishwaki, you had a question, right? Go ahead.
I wanted to know the name of the book that Dennis mentioned about someone present in the room and we treat that as impossible. What's the book, name of the book?
I'm sorry, you see, I wasn't listening to myself. So which book?
You mentioned one book, and you also again mentioned that in one of the evaluation of the evaluation that you talk to someone in the room like they are invisible.
Oh, the title of the book is How to Be a Jewish Mother by Dan Greenberg. Yes.
Thank you.
My mother was like that. She wasn't Jewish, but when I would bring a girl home, she would say, "She's rather thin, isn't she?" You know, things like that. Yeah.
I appreciated the 2 evaluators that noticed that Derek's head was out of the screen, his forehead was out of the screen. So I was watching to see if any of you will catch that. So thank you. Ishwaki and Renee.
I noticed that too, and I would expect everybody to mention it. And so if someone gives an excellence evaluation that doesn't include that, that actually might make them stand out and could give them an edge in the contest by not just pointing out the bloody obvious that we're seeing in front of ourselves, but catching other things that are require a little deeper analysis. But there's certainly nothing wrong with catching it. Yeah.
I think it was like, after I listened to your lecture, I felt like, now I don't know what is obvious. I was like, should I consider that screen as obvious and not mention it, or mention it? Should I consider like he was telling me too much as obvious or not obvious? I started questioning myself. I was like, what is actually obvious? What is everyone else gonna say? And I end up like spend a lot of time on, oh my God, I don't know what to tell him. What any recommendations there?
continue giving evaluations and confidence in yourself. Oh, goodness sakes, I draw with children. I don't say I teach drawing. I go into the elementary school and we draw. And in order to draw well, there's just one thing you need to do for a very long time. You have to draw badly. And so when it comes to giving evaluations, I've been giving Toastmasters evaluations for 13 years, but I've been giving constructive feedback for 40 years. You need to practice these skills and see what lands and what works. Over time, as you see, I'm here in front of 50 excellent Toastmasters, people who really know what they're talking about and can critically listen to what I'm saying and know what to take away and what to leave behind. It takes some confidence to get up and do a seminar like this, but every one of you is capable of doing it. All you need to do is spend the next 20 years giving critical feedback and learning from your mistakes. And I've made several tonight. You've already caught them, and I will learn from them in the future, but I hope that I gave you something that you can take away as well. So practice, that's all I'm saying.
I would like to mention one thing here. In order for you to give evaluation or in true intention of helping someone improve, we do not have to be preachers, and we actually have to give some constructive feedbacks, just like you mentioned, Dennis. And the tough part here is there's a term called radical candor and also a book called Radical Candor, which says that how you can be nice and you can still be critical. Like you can be human, but you don't want to be obnoxiously aggressive at it. So if you maintain, or if you make another person realize that you're caring for them and then you're giving that feedback, which is actually helping them. And I think the whole evaluation is about how fast you can make that trust and then give them the real feedbacks that they want to be improved on. And I think that's where the practice comes into picture and how better we can do that part.
Yes, no matter what you think of Dr. Phil, one of his best techniques is, how's that working for you? And that's something that we can always bring to the evaluations. You give some feedback, maybe their back gets up a little bit, maybe they bristle a little bit. Usually when someone gets upset by a piece of feedback, it's because you cut a little too close to the bone. At that point, you're actually right in there. And that's the time when you can say, I understand that that may be cutting a little close. How do you feel about it? And listen to how they respond. And very often they're going to actually be more critical of themselves in that instance than you would ever be. And it's just a good idea to listen, nod, and give them reassurance that being aware that this is an issue that when they're speaking. Once you have that awareness, that's how you can then grow and move forward. And I have actually been pretty harsh at times in club level evaluations, particularly when I am working with someone, giving them an evaluation, and it's very clear that they did not prepare for the speech at all. One of the funny things to me is that, again, I have a lot of experience just getting up with a set of notes and giving a speech, but even for my regular club speeches with my Pathways curriculum, I always write it out completely. I rehearse it and then I take it down to notes at that point, or bullet points. But I always have it written out completely. I always practice with my speech written out completely. Brand new speakers coming to the club doing their icebreaker, that's exactly what they should be doing. But it's the new speakers who come in with just a set of bullet points and think they're going to wing it and that it's going to come out smelling beautiful. No. What's really funny is that I work harder on my speeches than newer, less experienced people. And they should actually, if they would work just to the same level that I do on my speeches, they would immediately find incredible improvement in their speaking abilities. And this is what I mostly get across to my proteges, my mentees, when I'm able to be a mentor, is work on your speech as hard as I would work on it, and you'll immediately see an amazing change. Seems like people are tired of me, Tong. What do you think?
Well, I guess actually we've learned so much. I just feel like you've done so much today. That's a lot of work. I can't imagine that, how much you have put into this. But that's, if I have questions, I learned a lot tonight. And I found a lot of mistakes actually I'm making. Like I tend to revise other people's speech by saying like, it would be better if you do this. So I didn't realize that was a mistake. So that's one thing I take home with me. And I also found that using I language will be very safe, like you mentioned. It's going to be safe to use I language, how I feel, what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt. So that's very good to take home. And I really want to do more practice. And actually, I am kind of scared doing other people's evaluation because I was afraid if I don't give an evaluation, they actually wasted their time. They lose their opportunity to get very good evaluation from other more experienced Toastmasters. So many of the time, I kind of hesitated to sign up as an evaluator. So that's actually my concern. So I haven't actually signed up to be an evaluator for much. I don't know whether other people has the same concern.
Now, once again, I recommend that you sign up. You're going to learn by doing it, but mostly it's new people who are not very experienced evaluators who give me, an experienced speaker, the very best feedback. If you get up there and you say what you saw, what you heard, and what you felt, nobody can disagree with you. And everybody's going to learn from that.
That gives me the courage to do more evaluations. Thank you. And then anyone else has questions, or anyone that didn't get an opportunity to introduce yourself at the beginning, you joined later, because we had like 57 people during the peak time. I guess it's late, so some people already left. But for those people who didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, please, yeah, this is opportunity to let us get to know you. Anyone who did? Mark? I saw actually Mark and Yashpai.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, this is Yashpal. Sorry, I joined late, actually facing some problem with the connectivity. So it was wonderful session, Dennis. Oh, thank you for all the insights, and thank you to all the evaluators as well. So I have learned lot many things, and also we are having a club level contest, area level contest coming up. So I'll try to implement it in my practice as well. Thank you so much.
Great, great that you made it. And I saw that
It's Pramathesh.
Pramathesh, sorry about that.
It's okay. Hello, my name is Pramathesh, and I'm from India, and it's in the northeastern part of the country, and I am an entrepreneur out here, and I recently joined Toastmasters, and I have been attending the Speechcraft sessions since last 4 weeks, and it has improved me really well. And today's session was very good. And now I know what the evaluators are looking for in my speech. So thanks, Dennis, and all the evaluators. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pramathesh. Mark, did you get a chance to see something at the beginning?
My name is Mark Espinoza from Campbell, California, and I learned a lot tonight, and I'm going to take it with me Monday when I evaluate a speech of one of the newcomers.
All right, thank you, Mark. And on this screen, I saw Division I Director Verna. Did you get a chance to introduce yourself, Verna? Harry. Yeah, Harry, you have a question? Let me see who wants to.
No, all good.
Let me see who has. Yeah, just say, unmute yourself. Varendra. Yeah, please go ahead, Varendra.
Yeah, hi, Dennis, and hello, Toastmasters. It has been a quite eventful session, and I think it's been a quite some time now. I've been attending this Speechcraft sessions, hardly miss anything. But today's session is quite really helpful. I'm about to step on and as an evaluator, and will start my journey as an evaluator from next week. So whatever the points he has mentioned is really going to help me. In just 6 months, I have joined the Toastmasters, and I'm looking forward to improve more as an evaluator. And yeah, over to you. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you, Varendra. Right, see who else? We have a guest.
Give me 1 second.
Yes,
Dennis, can you share the file again? Some people are having trouble downloading it.
Which file?
Your presentation, did you share that? Lloyd, you were saying something?
Yeah, there was a presentation that was provided, and unfortunately it says it's corrupt. I tried downloading it, so I'm not too sure which presentation was put in the chat. I'm assuming it was Dennis's presentation.
Is this the previous sessions link? Can be found here, YouTube channel?
No, it was well before that. It was earlier on in the discussion. Just
I think it was the
No,
agenda.
that was shared by Carol.
That was the agenda? Was that the agenda?
Yeah.
okay. All right. Well, that was corrupt.
Were you looking for my slides from tonight?
Yeah, I'd
Yes.
like to get a copy of that too.
Oh, okay, let me get that. Well, I'm sure I have it somewhere.
Dennis, if you pass it to Abhijit, we can send it out to everybody who's left their email address.
Right.
And also we will
Thank
upload
you.
the recording into the YouTube channel so that readers, they can come and review.
Where do we leave our email addresses?
Just send it to me in the chat, Carol Ashton. Thank you.
So in the chat here,
Yes, that's correct.
there we go.
Well, I can see we still have a couple people here who haven't got a chance. So Ida or Ida, I mean, are you there? Okay, so next the guest name. Oh, Ida. Okay, all right. You are okay. I'll do the Ida first. Thank you.
Okay,
Hi,
go ahead,
Ida.
Ida. Good morning to you.